Today, as we approach Great Lent, as the ancient early church calls it, I share with you a very special teaching that reveals the experiential dimension behind the liturgy and rituals of the Eastern Orthodox Church. And so, hear these words. Dear friends, at the first creation, God placed within the human being a unique desire for the unique desired one that God is. But cut off from God in the fall, the human being seeks to satisfy that desire someplace else. Our desire fragments itself into the multiple and seeks in countless ways in that world of the relative, a response to its thirst for the absolute. That is why desire is the powerful symbol of our self, French le moi, the self, the true barometer of our spiritual life. As long as we are not centered on God alone, the desire is the enemy par excellence of the path, of the way, of the spiritual journey. It requires an extreme vigilance to discover it under all its hidden ways and disguises, and to constantly be on watch for those obscure satisfactions and pleasures. When someone has lost God, they experience a permanent state of lack. But for the one who has understood through experience that in the depths of each desire, of every desire, even the least of them, there is in truth the desire for God, then that person can become poor of all the rest. His or her consciousness turns towards the divine presence, which is at the heart of this interior thrust, elan, this interior energy, urge, and no longer aimed towards the objects of our convoitise, our desires. One day such a person will be possessed by God instead of being possessed by things. In the end, the human being, each of us rediscovers that unique desire which encounters God within all things, even in those satisfactions and pleasures. But these now will be places of encounter, of connection, l'alliance, covenant, even with the Holy One, and no longer prisons of the ego. Poverty in this person can become absolute. It translates itself concretely in a complete equality of the soul before all results. You might say it another way, complete calm of the soul before all results, before all reactions, all circumstances. If it's good or bad fortune, respect or insult, fame or blame, victory or defeat, health or illness, happy or tragic circumstances, whatever they are, the only thing that counts for such a person is that God is what God wants here and now. Such a person only wants what God wants in every moment. And everything that happens to such a person is accepted indifferently from God's hand. The smallest reaction of one's heart in the face of what occurs, the smallest reaction, is proof of a non-poverty and of an attachment to the old nature. This poverty is, first of all, to become free of everything. For this freedom is the great sign of our personhood. When a human being awakens to this freedom, he or she is born only then to themselves, to their true mystery, to their identity. This is an immense letting go, a leap into a complete and total confidence where another than the ego becomes the guide, the conductor of everything, because desire rests only in God. All this can be said very easily, and in fact it is the battle of a lifetime. But the path can be quick for one who has decided to go that way and pays the price. Amateurism in this area is a dead end. Only the one who exercises themselves with relentlessness can move forward on this path. Yet, cependant, even then one must be very careful, because that unique desire can hide a will to power, a pride, however subtle, that such a person is spiritual, that the search for the accomplishment, the fulfillment of self is still at hand, even in the presence of God. The self must disappear. After one's attachment to things, we are ourselves our own wealth. We are still a source of that desire, which seems legitimate enough as a desire for God. Therefore, we feel ourselves alive. Yet we must die to self completely. If not, nothing will take place. Even a self that is hungry for God is still egocentric. That self still has its autonomy and continues to live in its kingdom of desire. For the egotistical desire, there can be no accomplishment, no fulfillment. Liberation or salvation can only be found in losing oneself. God does not come along with other things, not even our own self. As long as there is a self, there is no room for a you, capital Y. It's said in French, tant qu'il y a un moi, pas de place pour un toi. And even if there is, it would be too much. We would take up too much space. We generally tend to imagine that if the human being is empty of self and of all things, that will then leave room for God to dwell within. And that is a great error. So say the holy ones, the ancient ones, the early fathers and mothers. Master Eckhart, for example, has a profound insight on this, in which he describes authentic poverty in this way. That thought, however tiny it may be, leisure, however light it is, thought, however light it is, to make room for God, still presents itself as a having something. It is a richness, that is to say, a filling of fulfillment of desire. If a person is empty of all things, of all creatures, of himself and of God, says Meister Eckhart, and if God could still find room in this person to act, we would say, as long as that room exists, this person is not poor, with the poverty is most intimate. We human beings must not have a place, but be ourselves the place in which God acts. That is what God would enjoy doing. It is here in that poverty that man recovers eternal being that we once were, that we are now, that we will be forever. We therefore must not possess or hold on to anything, not even a self that allows the reception of God's visitation, not even an absence of self, which is still a possible object of pride. The similitude, the similarity between God and the human being then becomes complete. We are one with God, identified with God, and from that point on, we no longer know a separate self. We have found our true self because it is lost in God. Holy wisdom, friends, for this holy time.